The way that I manage my DeFi is that I have three wallets basically. I have my cold storage that gets locked there, and I never touch it unless I need to move funds, but that's very rare. And then I have an old phone that I have only crypto stuff there. Like I don't navigate, I don't have photos, I don't listen to music. It's no SIM card, only my like Wi-Fi on home. Like I do not connect on public networks. And then I have my daily driver phone that I have a little bit of funds. So my daily driver is the one that I test things out. And then my DeFi phone or my hot cold wallet phone is where I have things that I do not need to manage day to day. And then that gives me the ease of access to connect with protocols and do things without compromising my cold storage wallet. So
That's a
that's a little
inside
yeah.
inside tip is valuable.
Yeah. And then my daily driver phone is the one that has the least amount of funds. And then sometimes if I need to, like, I don't know, I have some XRP there that if FXRP drops and I'm not home, that I can mint some. But I don't have most of my XRP there. It's just minimum funds to do like my day-to-day things, operations. So yeah, I feel like one of the challenges that we face with crypto in general, not only Flare, is that you need to be paying attention. Things are moving so fast that it's hard to keep up, and it's also easy to keep left behind. And coming back to what we were talking about, the airdrop with the XRP holders, I mean, the amount of Flare that I was going to get initially was ridiculous. Like literally like nothing. Right now, that's kind of like my play money. Not play money, but like if I want to try something, that's kind of the amount of money, the Flare that I used just to try things. And with the new voting that most of the community voted, it wasn't a unanimous thing by Hugo. And now, like if I put $1, then I get those airdrops on top of that dollar that I put in. So for me, and I think that for most of the people that have been paying attention, it was a great move. Like none of the active Flare users are upset about the change of the airdrop system. And I think that that's something that I don't know how that's going to be fixed. But yeah, just like for people to keep up when they have their families, their work, other responsibilities, their own hobbies or whatever, like keeping up with crypto, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, it does require a lot of time, and it's a commitment to ongoing time. It's not just a one-time thought of catching up because it continually changes.
Totally. But at the same time, I mean, I feel like for Flare, what I've been seeing is that the people, the grifters are slowly leaving. You know, the people that are not really adding anything to the network are slowly leaving. And then who stays are people that are passionate. They're people that are paying attention and that they become, in a way, guardians of the network. And I think that the strong community, it's very important for us. I mean, we have seen how XRP sometimes maybe it's a little bit too much, but the XRP army, it's such a strong community that like when somebody says something, like everybody will jump and there's like good responses of why that fact is false. And I think that that's very strong and that's very important in of this. That's why I started this whole education, because I know that if we have a strong DeFi community on Flare, that's like the economic backbone of the network, and then we can all win. But for us to all win, people need to learn and get educated. But I think that crypto has a way to filter itself out into people landing in the right spots where they're most appropriate.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's the dynamics that are very organic to communities, that it has a way of filtering out those people that are maybe not contributing properly. And so, yeah, it's painful sometimes, and it's not always a joyful, happy ride. There are bumps in the road, but that's also part of the self-governance, and yeah, it just goes with the territory. And I think if you are mentally prepared for that, yeah, you can find joy out of going through those bends and windy roads that are not always that clear. The path is not always that clear. We also heard Max talk about the probably increase of regulation, but with that regulation comes also more KYC and probably on a positive side too, more privacy. So I'd love to have you weigh in on his comments for those coming changes. How do you think, Whale, that this is going to change the space?
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation on Spaces earlier, and I think that KYC has its place. I think that I do agree that decentralized identity, it's very powerful. And the example that I always give is, remember when you went, I don't know, to the nightclub and you had to show your ID with your address to the bouncer. It's like, I just need to prove that I'm above, 18. I don't need to give you my whole like blood type and everything. And I think, remember when you pay with the credit card that people would write down the ID information, like that's completely gone because we know that people misuse that data. So if there's a way for me to feel safe that my information is going to be safe and that I have control of who I share that information with, I am 100% pro KYC. If I have nothing to hide, I have no reason why not to give, like, I mean, I'm a guy that likes crypto and whales, and my profile picture is a whale. But if somebody asks me because and they need to know, I'm happy to tell you my details. I have nothing to hide. So I think that in a way that would increase people's trust on the systems, not only on Flare, but in general. Trust. I think trust is one of the hardest things to gain in general, not only in crypto. And once you lose it, it's gone. So I do believe that regulation, privacy, and KYC, if implemented in the right way, where it's not like one centralized authority has all the power and then the rules go one way, because it's like if I can audit the government's movement, I don't mind if they can audit mine. The problem is if I have a government that is like, okay, I audit every single thing that you do, but you cannot see anything that I do, then that I'm 1,000,000% not okay. So I think that if we have privacy where I'm okay, the token. I think what Santiago Velez is doing with their KYC token is super fascinating, and I wish and I hope that that goes so much further because it's super powerful, and I really appreciate what he's doing, and I think that would increase sentiment. It would also make it a little bit harder for people to be bad actors, because if I don't know, to launch a project on Flare, you would need to have a KYC. Maybe I don't need to know who is the person that is, but I need to know that that person has gone through that process, and I can verify that person, that his information is somewhere, that if he were to rug, I could at least do something about it. That would increase my confidence much more than just hoping that a guy with a whale profile picture is not going to rug me,
Yeah, the KYC token that XDeFi has developed is very good to provide credentials to allow entry, if you will, into environments that require it. And I think the institutional investors are really going to value that because they need to be in those environments that are compliant. And so that compliancy in a trusted, decentralized manner is really beautiful. Get those combinations working together. So I think the KYC token that they have developed also, I would imagine, will be available some way, somehow for other people to utilize. I'm not sure how they're maybe going to bring that as a product to market, but I would think that there is a market out there to bring that as something that people can utilize. And so it's going to bring a whole new level of sophisticated traders, I think, to the space. And it's really great to know that you have entry into some areas that require it, but your privacy is retained. So that's so important as a user.
Yeah, one thing that I would be worried about is that now each single project requires you to do KYC because there's no what's the word? Like there's no agreeing on who is the right person to do your KYC with. Because that could be a big point of failure as well. Like if you have to send my information every time that I want to use a protocol, then like I hope that those guys are KYC before I send them my information,
Yeah, you're right though. You're still having to trust a third party to do the KYC, and we haven't yet fully, as everybody in the space, whatever you're doing when you have to KYC, that still is maybe a weak point, I would say. But I'm going to guess that too is going to be solved.
Maybe with AI and TEEs, like maybe there's a way that you can share your information with an AI agent and can verify that the information that you're posting is legit, and then it's in a trusted way that nobody's actually having that information. I don't know. I mean, all of these things are the things that we're figuring out as we go, and I think that that's a fascinating part of this journey, that we are creating potentially the future of the financial system, and that makes me so excited to be part of this.
Yeah, so true. But it would be really great to know that once we achieve that credential, that you can take that credential with you across platforms. That would be amazing.
Correct. And then also that maybe like the requirements for government to be able to ask for that information from the issuer.
I think these will be able to do what you just said, by the way.
Say again?
I was talking to Crypto Eri. The TEs will most likely be able to do what you said. Like it'll be able to execute. Like I said, there's both ways when it comes to TE. So if somebody has a token, you can actually verify that from another chain with the TEE.
Yeah, because the interoperability among chains is coming, and I would imagine that will be one of the first problems to solve is to create that trusted environment with a credential that everybody agrees upon. And and that is also stored in a secure way that you don't have to worry about any leakage. Yeah, it's a big
Well, that's what TE is. It's a store without having to worry about leakage. That's exactly what it does.
So one thing that I see that is very interesting is that I feel like the line between utopian and dystopian is very thin, because a lot of the problems that we see and all those dark tales that we have heard about this dystopian future are very hand in hand with the solutions that we need to make this work. So, and I think that it's in the implementation where we will go one way or the other.
Well, I always have a belief that as a whole and as a society, we go the right way. And I think that with the transparency and with the openness and shared knowledge that we have in terms of moving into a Web3 environment, I think it's going to get harder and harder to steer society in the wrong direction. I see it now with the amount of information that people now share. It's very difficult for governments to keep things hidden or to give us false agendas. I think it's getting harder and harder to do that.
Correct. No, and I think that also, like, if we could move all government spending into the blockchain, which I hope that happens, a lot of the things that we are worrying about would not be possible, so we wouldn't have to worry about them. Because, like, somebody, like, without going into too much into the rabbit hole, but the idea of capitalism, I think the problem is capitalism plus corruption, because then things that wouldn't be possible otherwise are possible. Because if you had if the corruption wasn't able to happen, then the amount of size that capitalism can gather and the power that they can gather is not because of capitalism, it's because of corruption that then gives them extra power and extra possibility to do things that otherwise they wouldn't. So maybe if you had a government working on functioning on the blockchain, then the government extorting a citizen just because whatever, it wouldn't even make sense. I don't know. I'm a dreamer. I like thinking that these things are possible. Otherwise, like, I'm like, then why are we like waking up every day in the morning? So for me, I'm a optimist.
Yeah, I'm idyllic in my thinking also with the way that it's possible, and I think we're going to go there as a society. I think everything is going to be out in the open and transparent, and I think the days of hidden agendas and corruption are going to be squeezed out. And I believe it will happen. I just don't know how soon, but I believe it will happen.
Yeah. No, I really believe that what we're doing here, like even having this conversation and everybody of us like doing our little step by step and like our little stone, it's much bigger than us and it's much bigger than we can realize. I do believe that like not all fights are done with guns, like sometimes just educating can be a massive revolution just by somebody listening and planting a little seed, and then where that can take us. So yeah.
I think the most unique part about crypto, if you notice, is it's probably one of the few environments you see people going, we would like you to bring in some regulation. We would like to clean up some of this nonsense. You don't see that in the banking industry. You don't see that in any industry. Oil and gas, they're not going, we want more regulations. Nobody says that. Crypto, we know what we have. We know the value of what it is. And we know the only thing stopping it from making that next leap is clear, precise regulations on what we have to worry about and how to stop bad actors. And we're one of the few communities actually who are really racing for it. Like we're talking about the KYC. It was brought up by a developer just a couple of days ago. Like, hey, what about KYC and people who want to launch a DApp? I've talked to several DApp guys, and they're like, yeah, KYC, it wouldn't bother me. So that alone, from just coming from community members, tells you it didn't come from congressional, it didn't come from a lawyer, it came from a community member. We want to see the community thrive, and we know the only way to make the community thrive is put guardrails. People need, like, I ran businesses. People love I don't care. They love guardrails. They like knowing the boundaries. They like knowing where the rules lie. How do you play the game? When there's no rules, how's the game won, right? And so there's a very unique thing that we as people like, and I think the crypto industry fully understands what it needs to make a really.
It's just clear rules.
Yeah,
clear rules and equal rules for both parties, because I think that's been the biggest problem, is that the rules are not clear on both sides. They're like very strict on one side and very unclear on the other side, to be kind with my words.
Yeah, I just don't know. Would I have to KYC to launch my meme coin? That's we're so in the early stages. It seems that would seem like an impossible and an overstepping procedure, but maybe we're going down that road. I'm not sure.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, what's your purpose of launching that meme coin? Like, if you're just trying to rug, then maybe that little step will stop you from doing it, and then somebody will make less, like lose less money. So I don't know.
Market
It's a
foolish.
tricky one. I feel like once regulations are in, I do believe, I don't know if 99% like Brad said one day, but I do believe that at least 90% of the space is just going to disappear. And it's not necessarily that it's going to be shut down by the government. It's just the business model is not going to work anymore, and then they're just going to fade out. And I don't even know how close we are to that. Maybe we're much closer than we think. Like maybe we're all thinking that we're still in this speculative aspect of the bull run, and maybe we're much closer to the actual utility where not necessarily that utility is going to be implemented into your day to day. It's more like, okay, the projects that actually have a business model and they're actually doing something, then they're just going to survive. And all the other ones that are not doing anything, they're just going to fade out by themselves because there's no way to keep going.
I would say that there's a lot of ghost chains out there. They're listed still on CoinMarketCap and people might still be trading, but I think there's a lot of projects out there that are just hanging on by a thread and don't really have a future.
Totally.
I would say there's a lot of them. So I want to talk about Max in his communication about Flare becoming a hub for XRP DeFi, and not just XRP. They're starting first with XRP, and it's for the non-smart contract chains. So we know Doge will be involved. We know that Bitcoin, maybe Litecoin. Yeah, this is very interesting. It's the first time I heard this communicated as far as being a DeFi hub for the non-smart contract chains. I'd love to get your feedback on what he said. Stephen, can I start with you this time?
Sure. So I mean, what that allows people to do is put their money to work for them, and that's why I think it's an incredible opportunity that they don't know they better get ready for. Because you look at, like I said, liquid staking, like Whale had said earlier. You know, if you have XRP, it's how are you growing it? Like, how do you make it do more money? Well, those that really go in and actually use DeFi as it's intended, just centralized finance, right? Make your own money work for you, will really succeed. It's going to open up a whole new world of revenue for people who never, who bought all these tokens and have watched them appreciate, but couldn't really do much with them. So, I mean, that's what I'm super excited. And I think what it will do for tons and tons of tokens down the road, because we're being able to bridge more and more. So it'll be interesting down the road.
Well,
yeah. So if we go back a little bit into the technical of how this works, what's actually happening, I don't know the staking part. There's no details yet, so I can only speculate, but I know what the end result will be. So basically, at some point, you're going to put your XRP on an escrow. You're going to give it to a custody. I don't know exactly how that works. And then the same thing for FXRP. You're going to give it to an agent. And then that agent is going to mint a ERC20 token on the Flare network. So what's happening is ERC20 token means that it's smart contract compatible.
right.
So you're not getting the same XRP. You're actually getting, in this case, would be FXRP or XSXRP, which means that the token can be locked in one place, but then you're going to have another token that can still be used. So what I understand is that XRP will have borrowing and lending and will have a lot of functions, but then that's an entirely new market that you have to build from scratch to be able to use it. Like with Kinetic, that's the borrowing and lending platform on Flare. I've seen them from day one, and they have really, it's been a journey to create enough liquidity where right now you can actually go and borrow stables at any time. Like it was always hitting the caps, and now there's enough liquidity that you can do it. So by providing this service of moving XRP or BTC or Doge into a EVM compatible chain, what happens is that you all of a sudden tap into all of these platforms that have been building or have been built for years and years and have a lot of liquidity. So by doing this, you could potentially then send FXRP to Aave, which is the main borrowing and lending platform on the Ethereum ecosystem, and you could tap into that, and then your asset becomes as useful as if you had Ethereum, where building from scratch on the XRP ledger or even on the EVM sidechain, you have to start from scratch. So I think by doing this, it just unlocks a lot of possibilities to do more financial things with your tokens than just holding them on a cold storage. What are those things? You can decide to provide liquidity. You can do borrowing and lending, which I think the borrowing and lending part is super powerful, because being able to provide that capital and get interest on it so that other people can use it, or use other people's capital to be able to, like I said, buy a house. I mean, a few months ago, I needed to buy a remote for my drone, and I didn't want to sell my Flare, so I just use leverage to take a loan against my Flare to be able to buy my remote. And then at some point, I paid for it, but I did it in a way that I needed the liquidity, but I didn't have to sell, get rid of my assets. So if all of a sudden then all the liquidity that I have on XRP becomes available for me to leverage that, then the possibility is open, because then maybe if I have a business idea, I can take a loan against that without selling my XRP, putting it to work. And because I'm over collateralized, I'm not going to, it's because it's not the same thing as using the credit card. What I understand, and maybe somebody will correct me, is that debt is just you can use other people's money just because you're pretty. And then credit is because it's like a house. You put a mortgage, you put your house and then you get a loan. If you don't pay your loan, you lose your house. So you're not going to be foolish about your money because there's something to lose. There's something at risk. So I think that that's a more positive way to grow a crypto economy, or even a broader economy. The problem is that right now we're creating money out of thin air without any backings of any sort. So it just unlocks a lot of capital that right now is just sitting to be part of this financial system that we're creating. I'm very excited about these possibilities.
Well, and I just thought of, like you said, it opened up other areas. Like you think of like USDX. Like, I mean, if you wanted to get a treasury bill, you can go put $5 and get a note that's going to pay you, 5%. But guess what? I can do that in DeFi. So, I mean, I could take my XRP, swap it for cash, and then store it nice and safe where, to pay back the loan is secured and earning me 5% on top of the, if it's a liquid staking token, which it should be growing. So, I mean, it's a really unique way to make your money work for you.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of new ways to collateralize assets with real world assets. I'm talking about where you can fractionalize them and then use just portions of that held asset to work for you as a financial instrument. It's just going to, the options and the amount of choices that we're going to have to do that is just going to increase and be incredible for the future of this new evolution that's taking place.
Yeah, especially when other larger institutions start getting involved. I mean, it's going to open up windows and avenues that we've not even considered at this point. I mean, this is so early. We're just getting a fraction of what's available. Like it's nothing, and it's still super exciting. That's the funny thing. So as more stuff comes on, I'm like, I can't wait.
Yeah, I think in the same way that they're trying to tokenize everything, like real estate, stocks, bonds, gold, silver, whatever. I feel like it's a similar process by bridging XRP into Flare. Then all of that liquidity that right now it's not necessarily part of the system because it's mostly on cold storage, then becomes part of an asset that can be used into that DeFi, like into that finance. In the same way that if you tokenize stocks, then that stock then can be brought into a DeFi platform, and then that stock can be your collateral to take a loan out or a house. So I feel like that's what's happening, is that each thing that gets tokenized in this way, we're gonna tokenize a token, if you will, but then that token becomes available for the broader market to be put into that, that liquidity that is going to be moving all of these cogs that are creating the financial system.
Yeah, I think creating the sell side of the tokenized real world assets is not going to be a big challenge. I think the challenge is going to come where we'll have to match the buy side. So tokenizing and having it available out there on chain is going to happen. But will we be able to match and balance the buy side? I think that's a big question that we've yet to answer because we don't know yet. And
can you elaborate, please?
If you have it's really easy to tokenize a real asset. You can bring anything on chain and have it represented in a form of a token, right? But in order for that tokenization to actually become a successful part of the financial system, you have to have a buy side. And I'm talking about a buyer. I'm talking about someone who actually wants to utilize that tokenization. And so they talk about trillions being tokenized. I have no doubt that that's going to happen. But will the buy side also support that sell side? We've yet to see that happen.
I think the friction has to dramatically reduce, usage before we'll see that. And I don't think that's in the near future, but I think it'll happen. But like the issue is the complexity of using everything right now. It's got to be so simple my grandma can use it, right? Because she can be able to buy a house. So, until we reach that stage, I don't think you'll see super mass, but I think you may see like behind the scenes it already starting to work. I could see banks using the tokenization process. I could see in Oklahoma for us, all of our deeds are actually hand done still. So, when you sell a house, you got to hire somebody to go back and track every signature, every document, every book. And if a book's missing, they got to find it and they got to buy it, and it's an expensive process. So I could see those types of processes being applied, but for the buy side, I think it'll happen in banks before it happens with people.
Yeah, I feel so. Earlier you were saying that some of the exchanges are offering staking services. And if you go into the Scepter webpage, they're offering around a 42% APR for like staking, delegating, and flare drops. If you go to Uphold, they give you 4% per year.
Oh, yeah, well, they're operating as a bank.
Yeah,
in,
so
in the way of keeping the lion's share of the
so I think
available.
what's going to happen is that, like, coming back to what you were saying, is that at some point, let's say a house, just because that's an easy example, like you're going to buy a house, and instead of going and gathering signatures like Steven was saying, you're just going to go into the bank or to the app, you're going to buy the house, and then you're going to say, okay, you own the house, we're going to custody the title of that house, and then they're going to be leveraging and doing DeFi with that token. And you're going to be super happy knowing that your house is safe and that you're living in your house. And then on the back end, somebody's going to be using that token to make money. And then whenever you're ready to sell it, like they're going to be like, yeah, sure, just press here. And then we transfer the custody of, or not the custody, the title. And then on parallel, there's going to be the world where people that are actually paying attention are going to be able to self-custody that title and then leverage that property for themselves. So I think that I do believe that 98%, 99% of crypto is going to be so back end that people won't even know that they're using crypto.
Yeah, well, that's the goal, right? I think the goal of everybody who is now playing in Web3, the goal is to get people to participate, be engaged, and be users without even knowing that they are utilizing blockchain.
Sure. I don't know if at the expense of like some people, insiders making a lot of money at the expense of other people that don't know, I don't know if that's a good result.
Well,
but maybe
I
it's
think
inevitable. Maybe like there's no way around it, you know?
I think eventually the people who are doing it in a fair and equitable way and sharing that possible profit, I think they're going to be the most successful. So I think if you're going to try to be a person who is not sharing some of that with the participants, you know, if you're bringing your house into a financial instrument for people to utilize, and they're not sharing some of that gain with you, I think that'll be the differentiating factors of which banks will be successful and which won't, because people are going to go do business with the banks that are doing it in a fair and equitable way and maybe share some of that value. I think taking it, because of obviously, even in the stable coins, I'm a big believer that the stable coins that are going to be yield bearing are going to outperform all the other stable coins that don't provide a yield. That's just my own theory. But I think eventually the ultimate success of stable coins are going to be those that are sharing that yield. Yeah, I do believe that.
Yeah, I think you're accurate. I mean, I see advertisements here in the US, you know, for different financial advisors, comparing one who puts your money into a commission base where they make money no matter what you do. They got you signed up in this pool and that's what they make their money off of, versus the other style, which is we only make money when you make money. So there will be two different avenues. And like I believe that like you said, the ones that share the revenue will see a better increase. But it's going to happen. It's just going to be part of that process as long as we get there.
So speaking about the level playing field, which is very burned phrase in my opinion, but I think it's very interesting because I mean, a couple months ago, if you had asked me if I was going to be interviewing Hugo, I would have seen like, yeah, sure, whatever, in a few years. And then just a couple of random dudes that decided to go for it. And then now we're here talking to you, talking to him, talking to big players in the system. And I feel like one of the value propositions that I see with crypto is that it allows the small player to be able to compete with the big player. And maybe what you're saying is that a small bank, a small regional bank with some XRP would be able to offer exactly the same services that JP Morgan, and because they have less to lose, they can offer so much better product and still be profitable. That maybe that's the hook, and that's the part where, you know, like you said, the governments can't keep things hidden so long, and maybe banks won't be able to keep it hidden so long. So that's one of the things that I'm very excited about this whole space.
Thank you so much, Whale. Steven?
I would say, you know, obviously join our space. Flare community is actually extremely unique. I don't know, you know, it's not like I can go jump on a space with Brad Garlinghouse and get a chance to chat with him. You know, Flare, yeah. Well, again, like I said, the Flare community gets that unique opportunity where, you know, Hugo was great to come chat with us. You know, he's definitely going to come chat with us again. You know, we're able to bring community members up to ask questions, and you just don't get that. And so that is something that's very, very valuable, I think. And the coolest thing is that anybody who's out there in the network, I mean, just ask. If you ask me, if you ask any of the providers, you know, how do I do this or how do I do that? Somebody's going to jump in and help you. It's a very caring community that wants to see you succeed. If you go out there and act crazy, they're also gonna put you in check. So it's a very unique environment. And if you're just willing to ask simple questions, you're gonna find that people are gonna talk to you. Like, that was the coolest thing about this is, if you go back, I have no content about Flare before like November, I think. And then I just engaged and was like learning. I knew what I knew. So I wanted to share what I knew because nobody else was sharing it. And all I had to do was, reach out to Whale. Hey man, I saw you on Space, dude. What do you think about this? We reach just talking to people, and the relationships just grow. People want to help you grow. They want to see Flare succeed. So the thing I would leave them with is just engage the community. Show up at a space, ask a question. We're going to do our best to answer the question or say, that's a good one. We don't know. We'll have to check on that. Because I mean, it's just a unique environment. So that's what I would leave people with is just ask. Take one step. That's all you gotta do. Your first step's the hardest, and after that, it's awesome.
So you're recording all your spaces, is that right? People can go back and listen?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a little bit of thing. Finding stuff on X is not the easiest for like media. That's one thing that YouTube does better. It's easier to go back into a profile and find stuff. But yeah, all the spaces are there on both profiles. I always reshare multiple times the spaces.
Great. Well, I thank you for your time today, and I appreciate all you're doing for the community, the XRP community and the Flare community.